and welcome to episode 21 of the Catherine Crochets podcast. Hi everyone, my name's Catherine. I'm a crochet designer from South London in the UK, and this is my podcast where I like to talk about all the recent crochet projects that I've been working on, and also I have a couple of knitting projects as well to share with you today. Happy New Year. It's the 13th, I think. Yeah, 13th of Friday the 13th actually. That's unlucky for some, isn't it, if you believe in that. Anyway, it's Friday the 13th of January today. So yeah, belated Happy New Year. It's been a little while since my last podcast, which was back in November, although I did take part in Vlogmas for the first time during December, where I shared some videos showing some of the crochet and knitting that I was getting on with during that period, and also various other Christmassy bits and pieces. So if you watched any of those, I hope you enjoyed them. But I'm back now with a podcast. I've been meaning to do this for a few weeks, but just haven't managed to find time. So I'm really pleased to be able to have time to film this podcast to share with you today. I've got quite a bit to share with you. If you did watch Vlogmas, then some of it will be some of the projects that I talked about there. But for those of you that didn't watch Vlogmas, I'm not going to talk about absolutely everything I've done since the last podcast, but just the highlights and the main bits and pieces. One thing I was going to mention was, you might have noticed if you've watched before that I've switched locations today. So I'm in my kitchen now. I used to film upstairs in the study where I work, but today I've decided to move down to the kitchen. It's normally a bit dark here, to be honest, to film, but I've got a new lamp, which hopefully the lighting is okay and not looking too electronic. You can, I've just noticed, see it in the reflection. It's one of those ring lamp things. You can see it in the glass of the pictures behind me, but not quite sure what to do about that. I've also, because I literally only just took it out the box, I hadn't charged it up, so it needs to stay plugged in at the moment to work. So maybe next time, if I'm more organised, I can charge it up and move it further away from the plug, so there isn't the reflection. Anyway, I hope you like the new setup and this works okay. I quite like it because I've got a table in front of me, which I prefer rather than just sitting on a chair. I find it easier. I've got somewhere to put my hands. So anyway, so we're in the kitchen today. I've got lots to talk to you about. I've got 2 pattern releases to share with you that have happened since my last podcast. So if you follow me, if you're on my email list or follow me on Instagram, or if you watch Vlogmas as well, then you'll already know about quite a few of these things. But I thought to make sure that for those of you that just watch this podcast, I'd cover it all in the podcast as well. So I've got 2 new pattern releases. One is a cushion and one is for some mittens, and they're both crochet patterns. Then I've got 2 finished objects to show you, and then I'm going to chat about a couple of other things that I did as well, which I can't show you because, well, for various reasons, which I'll explain later. Then I've got 2 new crochet whips on the go that I've started recently, and then a few plans for the future. So that's what's coming up today. So let's get started with the pattern releases. So the first pattern release was for my winter Flora cushion pattern, which you can see here. It's a tapestry crochet design, like almost all of my patterns, not quite all, but most of them are tapestry crochet. And it's 1 giant solid granny square. So you start in the middle and keep going round and round and working out. And this in the middle, it's supposed to be sort of wintry, Christmassy design, but obviously if you did it in different colours, it doesn't have to look Christmassy at all, and you could make one for, you know, for any time of year. So this is supposed to be a poinsettia flower in the middle here, and then these are mistletoe leaves and berries around the edge, and the mistletoe berries are actually made with popcorn stitch. So I don't know if you can, if I show it a bit like that, you can see that they're nice and bubbly and popping out, which I thought was quite fun. And this is the project that I have talked about in previous podcasts but couldn't share with you because it was a secret, that I designed for the Crochet Sanctuary workshop that I went to at the end of November, which was just after a week or so after I filmed the last podcast. So this was the project that I took with me to the Crochet Sanctuary and that people made at the workshop there, which I led, which I had the best time there. It was so much fun. It was a whole weekend of crochet, and I'm not sure if I mentioned it last time, but before you go, because I was leading one of the workshops, but I was invited to come along for the whole weekend and join in all the other crochet projects and things as well. So before you go, they send you an itinerary for the weekend, and basically it's arrive, short icebreaker activity to get to know everyone. They asked everyone to share their pet hate about Christmas. So turns out some people just didn't like Christmas, which was quite amusing considering they'd signed up to come away for a Christmas crochet weekend. But anyway, that was fun, and it broke the ice, and I couldn't remember everybody's name. There was probably about 30 people there, but it just was a nice way to introduce everyone. Most people, I think everybody apart from me, had been on at least one weekend before, but not necessarily with everybody else who was there that time. So some people knew each other really well, and then others were meeting perhaps for the first time. So there was an icebreaker activity. Then this was at 5 o'clock on the Friday evening. Then straight after that, we went straight into the first crochet project, which was tree decoration. So they gave us all one of those boxes of Shape Yee's stone washed and river washed minis, where you have, I'm not sure, it must be close to 100 different little mini balls of all the different colours. And then they gave us, I was going to talk about this later actually, but I'm covering it now. They gave us some crochet patterns to make some amigurumi. I think they were all amigurumi. No, not quite. Most of them were amigurumi style tree decorations. So there was things like a Santa's boot, a Christmas pudding, a Christmas tree, a really nice slice of dried orange, you know, like you hang on the Christmas tree, a star. Yeah, it was probably like half and half amigurumi and other just non-amigurumi crochet. So that was the Friday night project. Then you go to dinner, then you come back to the sanctuary room after dinner and do more crochet. Then Saturday morning, they have a suggested time to come for breakfast. It's all based in a hotel. So they have a suggested time for people to come to breakfast, and there's one long table set up in the restaurant for everyone who's at the crochet sanctuary to have all their meals together at that table. So you don't have to come for breakfast at that time, but if you do, that's when there's most likely to be other people around. Then after breakfast, the morning workshop starts, which was a Christmas tree skirt. And both of these workshops were sort of run by the Crochet Sanctuary hosts, who are Lisa and Linda Rose. So they designed the patterns for those bits of the workshop. And then there's always lots of refreshments, tea and coffee and biscuits and cakes and things like that. I think we had mince pies at one point as well because it was Christmas. Have a break for lunch, and then after lunch, Saturday afternoon, it was my workshop, which is when I led the workshop for the cushion, which went down really well. The only, I think, lots of people absolutely loved it. Obviously, when you're doing a workshop for lots of people, it's not going to be necessarily everybody's cup of tea. And I think the nature of the weekend is that some people try and start each project at the beginning of each workshop, but you're not necessarily going to finish it then, and that's fine, and that's the whole point. You get to take all the yarn home with you and finish off the different projects whenever you want to and at your own pace. So some people preferred to finish off projects they'd already started in the earlier workshops, but lots of people started work on the cushion, and it does require, compared to some of the other projects, it does require quite a bit of counting and concentrating and thinking. Once you get into it, I think you get into a bit of a flow, and it's easier. But especially if you've not done this sort of thing before, did require a little bit of concentration for people to start with. And obviously I was there and on hand for any queries, so that wasn't a problem. But I think some people like to be able to perhaps chat a bit more while they're at the workshop, which is totally understandable. So they preferred to perhaps work on other patterns like the Christmas tree skirt, which was much more straightforward and easier to keep crocheting with whilst perhaps having conversation. But lots of people started to work on this, and by the end of the weekend, I think one, maybe two people had actually managed to finish the whole of the front of the cushion, and very soon afterwards they were sharing pictures on Instagram of the whole finished cushion, because the back is really simple. Once you've done the front, it's just a nice plain solid granny square, but the front is obviously where all the fun and interest is. So yeah, the pattern's available now in my Ravelry and Etsy and Lovecraft stores. It's called the Winter Flora cushion pattern, but obviously you can make it in any colours you want. You don't just have to make it in Christmassy or these sort of wintry colours. It's made with Shapey's Katona yarn, which is a cotton four ply yarn, which I like it, especially for cushions, because it's not fuzzy, it's really smooth. So because it's cotton, it gives really good stitch definition, and because it's not fuzzy like say an acrylic yarn would be, you don't get any of sort of extra fuzziness or bobbliness with use over the years. It just sort of, I find it just stays looking exactly like this sort of forever, really. So that's my first pattern release since the last podcast, and that's the Winter Flora cushion. So the next pattern release is another project that I've shared on the podcast before. As you might remember, I was designing some crochet mittens, and I don't know if I've named them or not, but I did name them, and they're called the Arda mittens, and they come in 5 different sizes. So I'll show you my pair first that fit me. So they go from extra small, small, medium, large, and extra large, and these are the large ones, so they fit an adult woman. And yeah, they're called the Arda mittens. The extra large fit my husband. They're made with Hobby Friends Merino Extra Fine. I think that's what it's called. And I should have mentioned before, there'll be a link in the show notes to all of these patterns. Anything I mentioned today, any pattern, whether it's mine or someone else's, I'll pop a link in the show notes to it. And also to the Crochet Sanctuary website if you want to check them out as well and go away on a Crochet Sanctuary. I think they'll be releasing I know that they were fully booked for 2023 already. That's all booked up, and they released their dates early in the year, in the previous year. So soon, I think, they'll be releasing their dates for their weekends in 2024. And I know, well, I've heard that they always they always get booked out completely, sold out, that was the word I was looking for, really quickly, within maybe a matter of hours, I think, I don't know. So if you are interested, it's up in Cheshire in the north of the UK, north of England. If you are interested, go and sign up to their email list on their website, and you'll get a notification whenever the dates are available for booking. They do sometimes have last minute places come up close to the workshops if people, because obviously you have to book an awful lot in advance, over a year in advance, and sometimes people's plans change or things come up. So they do sometimes have last minute availability for places, so you can also sometimes get a spot that way as well. But anyway, back to the mittens. These are the Arda mittens. Yeah, These are the size large, my size. They're made with the Hobby Friends Merino. I didn't bring a ball with me to check that. There's Hobby Friends Merino Extra Fine, I think, and it's a 4-ply yarn, I believe, or about that thickness anyway. Yeah, and it's tapestry crochet again, and the pattern comes in 5 sizes. So that's the large, which I made a whole pair for myself. This is the extra large, which fits my husband, but they weren't really his cup of tea, to be honest. So, and the colours either perhaps weren't his. So, I mean, they don't fit me too badly either, but they are a bit big. But so I didn't make a second one of that. Then this is the medium, which I did make a pair of because they fit my daughter, who is 12. So those are the medium ones. These are small, and these fit my younger daughter, who is nearly 9. She's 8, but she'll be 9 this month. But she didn't like these colours, so I'll show you another pair in a minute, which I made for her. And then these, I think these are my favourite because they're so diddy and cute. These are the extra small, which fit like a young child or toddler, say. Maybe not quite a toddler, but yeah, a young child. So like I said, the yarn I used and designed it all with and sized it with is a 4-ply yarn, but you could obviously make them with whatever thickness yarn you like. And I know a lot of people, crocheters especially, have a lot of DK yarn, and especially like DK acrylic yarn, for example, in their stash. And because it's quite a small project, it's really good at just using up oddments of yarn in your stash. So these are the ones that I made for my younger daughter, which these are actually the extra small pattern, but made with a DK acrylic yarn, and I went up half a hook size as well to make them. So obviously you can see they've worked out bigger, and in the pattern I worked out like the percentage increase of how much bigger they are if you switch to a DK yarn. So if you wanted to use a DK yarn instead of a 4-ply yarn, although this is really, really nice and warm with it being merino and soft. But yeah, if you don't want to, they work up really well in DK acrylic yarn as well. You just, obviously the pattern, the crosses on them is just sort of slightly bigger than if you're using a thinner yarn, and you might want to go down a size from what you'd normally use. So in the pattern, for each of the 5 sizes, I give lots of dimensions of the mittens. So the height from the cuff to here, the height from here to here, the width, I think around the wrist, and the sort of largest width as well. Yeah, several different dimensions, so you can work out which size would fit you both best, or whoever you're making for, and then adjust it by the percentage increase if you went up to a larger yarn. Yeah, so those are the Arda mittens. So I've got mittens all over the place. Ta-da! Yeah, and that is my second pattern release that I had to share with you today. So I'll pop those over there. So next, let's move on to finished objects. Sorry, the phone that I'm filming with, I knocked it with the sock blockers and it just went flying. So I've had to set it up again, so things might have shifted a little bit. But yeah, both of the finished objects that I've got to share with you are knitting projects that I finished off over one I finished off over Christmas and New Year, and the other one I started on Christmas Eve and finished on New Year's Eve. So the first one I have to share with you is these, which are my first ever knitted socks, and these are the October socks, which is a pattern from Emma Potter of Potter and Bloom. And I made these with West Yorkshire Spinners signature 4-ply in, I think this is cinnamon or nutmeg, something like that. Might be nutmeg actually. yeah, so I decided, because it was my first time ever knitting a pair of socks, that I'd go just do them all in one colour and not fuff about changing the cuff. Do you call that the cuff, or the heel, or the toe? But I think next time I make some socks, I would quite like to do a contrast colour cuff or heel or toe. I've got loads of this yarn left, and when I bought this, I also bought the same yarn in a kind of cherry red sort of colour, and do you call it? It's a blue. It's not as dark as navy. It's a bit lighter, but not a lot lighter. I wonder if it's called, if you might call it something like a French navy. Is that a lighter blue? But anyway, I've got those colours as well. So the blue would work with this, the red wouldn't, but also the blue and the red would work together as well. So I was thinking I might do a pair of red socks with blue heel, cuff and toe next. So I just need to choose a different pattern. I might just do a plain one, although I do quite like this sort of ribbed effect here that goes all the way around and down. So we'll see, but I don't have any plans to start another pair of socks imminently, because I've got lots of other things on the go, but there will be more socks, more knitted socks, I'm sure. Yes, I put these on the blockers when I finished them, which was sometime I think between Christmas and New Year. Yeah, hoping to podcast quite soon, but didn't actually find time to do that. So I haven't taken them off the blockers since or worn them, because I wanted to keep them looking lovely to be able to show you. So really looking forward to be able to take these off the blockers and start wearing them now. But it's amazing how much better, if you want to show someone a sock, it looks so much better on a blocker. If I take it off now, it just looks like really limp and wiggly, and well, maybe because it's been on the blocker, it's not so bad actually. But before they were on the blockers, it was really like difficult to show in such a nice way. So even if, I mean, I'm a bit lazy, I don't always block things, but even if you weren't going to block your socks, just if you want to take a photo or show them to someone, putting them on a sock blocker is a much nicer way to do it. Yeah, so that's the October socks pattern from Emma Potter at Potter and Bloom, and there will be a link to it below. So the next finished object I have to show you is another knitting pattern, and it's another pattern from Emma Potter and Bloom, and it is a hat, which I cast this on. We went to my parents for Christmas, and it's probably about an hour and 3/4 drive. On a really good day you could do it in an hour and a half, but it's I think it might have taken us about an hour and 3/4. We drove down on Christmas Eve, and I cast this on in the car on the way down, worked on it over Christmas and in the week after Christmas, and finished it. We went up to my sister-in-law for New Year, and I finished it on the drive up to theirs in the car on New Year's Eve. So it was a really nice 1-week project. So yeah, it's a free pattern. It's the Rib and Gather hat from Emma Potter at Potter and Bloom, who, I just got her email this week saying that because she's returning to work full-time, or I don't know if it's full-time, but employed work, she's not going to be podcasting anymore, I think. So that was a shame to hear that, because I always really enjoy watching her podcasts. But yeah, this is her Rib and Gather hat, which is a free pattern, and that's it when it's all opened out. And I made this with her recommended yarn for the pattern, which is, this is what's left of it, it's Arda Jewel Spun, and the colour, I don't know if it says on it, oh yeah it does, it's Midnight Fjords is what it's called. And I made one of these last year, which is sort of what got last Christmas, well not last year, the year before really, wasn't it? Which is sort of what got me back. I'd done a little bit of knitting before, but not very much, and it was sort of what got me keen on doing a bit more of it again. And this is the one I made last year. Oops, and this is the second one. And so you can see my knitting has improved. I mean, this one has been worn a lot more, and this one hasn't been worn at all yet. So it has sort of, the yarn has sort of fluffed up a little bit, but you can see the bottom is much neater on this one in general. And also the pattern, so it's a ribbed hat, and you do it with knit one, and then there's purl through the back loop, knit, purl through the back loop. But in Emma's instructions, she says if you're quite new to knitting, you could just do knit, purl, knit, purl. So that's what I did for the first one I made last year, because I didn't know how to do purl through the back loop. I could have looked it up, but I decided to just do what I knew. You can't really tell any different. This one I did this year, I thought, right, I'll do it properly, and I'll do knit one, purl through the back loop. And to be honest, it does look neater, but I don't know if that's just because my knitting's neater. But it's very difficult to tell the difference in the stitch, isn't it? But one thing that surprised me, so this is the first time that I've looked at these two hats sort of side by side, and how similar they've worked out. So they've both got this sort of bluey green stripe section, which is my favourite bit, in approximately the same spot, which I complained about this last year, not to anyone in particular, just in general. Well, you get a bit of it at the bottom there when you turn it up. On this one, when you turn it up, you don't see any of it at all. You just get the blues and the sort of pinky maroons. And I was hoping that I would have got this perhaps up here and been more visible. So maybe I need to, I'm sure I've got enough left. Maybe I need to try one more time and see if I can get the greeny blue bit where you can see it. But this one actually is going to go to my mum, because while I was knitting it at theirs over Christmas, she mentioned that she has a hat, but she's worried that she might lose it or leave it on a bus one day or something like that. So she'd like to have a backup hat, a second hat, just in case of it being lost. So I'm going to give this one to my mum. We're seeing her, I could pop it in the post, which I think is back to normal now after all the strikes, but we're seeing her next weekend anyway. Today's Friday, so in 9 days time, so I think I might just give it to her then. So if you watch this, Mum, before we see you, remind me to give this to you when you come up. And I've still got all of this left, so I could either make another one, or I was looking on Ravelry the other day at patterns for berets, because I was flicking through a catalogue for, I can't remember which company it was, but they had a really nice beret, and I thought, oh, well, I could knit one. So I looked on Ravelry for beret patterns and saw one I liked, and it was free as well, which was good. I wasn't I'm happy to pay for a pattern if, if designers go to the effort of designing something and writing up, I'm more than happy to pay. But it was a free pattern, and it needed an Aran yarn, which this is. So I thought, well, that could be the perfect project for the rest of this yarn. So that's a maybe. It's not an imminent plan, but maybe at some point I will make a beret with the rest of this yarn. Although I do wonder if a beret would look better in just a solid plain colour. Not sure. Could look good in both, couldn't it? So those are the finished objects. The other things I was going to mention in this section I have already chatted about earlier, and that was the Christmas tree skirt that I made at the I started it at the Crochet Sanctuary weekend and then finished it off in time. It was before Christmas. Our tree was already up, and it wasn't finished when we put the tree up, but I did finish it off in time to put it under the tree before Christmas. So I'll pop in, I haven't got it, it's all packed away in the attic with all the Christmas decorations now. Excuse me, I've got a whisker. Yeah, so I'll pop in a photo to show you what that looked like. And other finished objects that I finished off for Christmas were the tree decorations. That was another project from the Crochet Sanctuary weekend. I didn't make all of them. I think there was six or possibly even 8 different designs, but I made quite a few of them and actually gave them as little gifts to the girls' teachers at the end of the year. And they were quite nice to sort of hook on. Their gifts were in a gift bag, and they were quite nice to sort of hook on the gift bag as like a little sort of charm or tag, and then they could obviously still use it as a tree decoration. But I don't think I actually took any photos of them. I might have held them up and shown them in one of the Vlogmases, but I can't remember which one. But if you really want to see them, have a look through my Vlogmases, and you might, I think you will. I'm pretty sure you will see them in one of those. Yeah, so that's the end of finished objects. So the next section is WIP's work in progress, and I've got 2 crochet projects on the go at the moment. The first one, I started this over Christmas, and it is a cushion cover. So it's got this big star, it's solid granny squares, and some of them, as you can see, are these 2-tone granny squares, or half and half granny squares. And so I've done a star, and then I'm going to go all the way around with these sort of blue triangles next, and it is going to cover this massive, just move back a bit, cushion that I've got. And it's going to be like a floor cushion for the girls, for my daughters to use up in a room up in the attic that they use, that they play in quite a bit. So that's the plan. And I'm using for it King Cole cotton soft yarn, which I had some left over from a magazine commission that I did. So I used this I had a few commissions with, I think I've had 3 commissions with this yarn, and it is really, really nice soft cotton yarn. It's much softer than, say, the Katona that I used on the cushion, on the winter Flora cushion. So it does make a really nice blanket, even though it's 100% cotton. A really soft blanket, if you know what I mean. But yeah, I had some left over, so I'd used this in, if you know any of my patterns, I'd used it in the Vita blanket and a shawl pattern, actually, which I haven't released yet. It was just a simple sort of granny stitch triangular shawl. That's where the green came from both the Vita blanket and that shawl, I think, and the white did as well, and the blue was just in the shawl, and I didn't have much of the blue left over. So yeah, so this is the cushion cover. So I'm going to do blue triangles all around. Then I think I'm going to need at least one more round of squares after that. Then I think that might make it big enough to cover the cushion, or I might need another round as well, we'll see. And then the back, I think, well, I'll see what I've got left in terms of how much of each colour. I'm not sure what I'll do on the other side. It might end up just being all plain white, in which case I might not do lots of separate squares, because then you get all the ends to sew in, and also I don't know if my yarn would stretch. I could just do one massive solid granny square to cover the back. I think that might be a bit of a safer option, and then if I do ever end up looking like I'm running out of a colour, I can perhaps do a round or 2 in another colour instead. But yeah, that was a nice, so I started this off over the Christmas and New Year holidays. I can't remember if it was before or after New Year, because I wanted to use up some of my stash. I bought this for a different project a while ago, cushion cover that I was making, but it just, the cushion's too big for the piece that I've made, so that was just something that I've sort of abandoned. Really. So that cushion's been floating around in our attic for maybe a couple of years. So I thought it was a really good chance to use some of my stash up and cover the cushion and make something that I think the girls will enjoy using as well. So that's a sort of on the go project, and I started it because I'd finished up the mittens and the knitting, and I wanted to start a new crochet blanket design, which I'll show you in a minute, but I didn't have the yarn for that yet. I hadn't worked out exactly what I wanted to order either. So while I was sort of figuring that out, I thought I'd start this, and then this last week or so I haven't worked on it because I received the yarn for my new crochet blanket design, and I've started work on that instead. But I'll definitely be picking this up and finishing it off, possibly in between projects, but I don't know how much progress I'll make on it for the next few weeks at least. So the second whip I have on the go is the new blanket design, which I have started, I think I started it on Sunday last weekend anyway, and it is a hexagonal design. Well, it's made with hexagon motifs that I'm joining using a join as you go, and I've been really good and sewn in all my ends apart from the sort of final green one on each round where it's at a sort of external corner. So I will sew those in once I join on another hexagon to cover them up. But I'm really pleased I'm keeping on top of my ends because otherwise they would mount up. Yeah, so it's tapestry crochet, but I'm also using some front post stitches to sort of give a bit of texture to the flowers. If I tilt it a bit, you can see the texture, which I really like, that kind of raised look that it's giving the flowers. I'll show it to you without the bits in, and also it's got these nice bits. So there you do a little sort of green bit at each corner of the triangle, and then when hexagons are in, then when they 3 hexagons meet like this, you get a little green triangle. So yeah, this is going to obviously get a lot bigger and be lots of lovely flowers all over it. So it's got a central, it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 colours, I think. Yeah. So it's got a central colour in the middle, and then I wanted to make the petals like 2 tones. I never know if tone or shade is the right word, but 2 tones I think of the same colour. So two different blues I went for. Though obviously you didn't have to do that. You could do 2 completely different contrasting colours. Then it's on a white background with these green bits in the corner. And this is a relatively new yarn. It's new to me, and I think it was only released last year anyway. This is Shapey's Scrumptious yarn, which is, it's recycled, or it's either completely recycled. Yeah, it's 50% recycled. So it's 50% acrylic and 50% recycled polyester. So yeah, I've made quite a few blankets recently with Shapey's Katona, like the Hestia and the Clarissa. Maybe that's it. Which is a really nice cotton yarn, and it's nice and fine as well. So those have got quite big square motifs. So I wanted to use a thinner yarn, otherwise each individual motif would have been massive. But for this, I knew that the motifs weren't going to be quite so big. So I decided to go for a DK yarn, and I thought I'd go for, obviously as a blanket you use quite a lot of yarn, so thought I'd go for an acrylic yarn. So it's nice to be able to use one that is at least 50% recycled. Also, so this is my first time using Shapey's Scrumptious yarn. Oops. So I picked the colours. I didn't have a yarn chart thing or yarn pegs or anything for them, so I just looked at them online and picked the colours based on that. So I did get a couple of other colours that I didn't use, although I haven't got any of those with me now. But what I do like about some of the colours, are those the right ones? Yeah. So the central blue I'm using is actually, I don't know if it's picking it up very well, but it's not a solid colour. It's got a sort of a pinky marl to it. Is it showing you that? yeah, I think you can just about see that there. And so does, this is the central colour, which is sort of a grey, but with a little bit of a maroony tint to it. I'm not sure how well it's showing up. The green and the cream are pretty plain and solid, and so is the darker blue as well, actually. But it's really, I really like the sort of marl, if that's the right word, in these two yarns. And I think it's really nice that they have some yarns like that in this range. So, sorry, tap the phone. So yeah, so I think it's really nice that they have some of those in this range, because I think the sort of, it makes it almost a little bit iridescent and sort of almost glow, just a bit more vibrant, I think, having that, not being a plain solid colour, but having that. So I'm really pleased with how this is working up, and it's going to take, because it's going to be quite a big blanket, each hexagon at the moment, including sewing in ends, is, I'm not sure, might be taking me over an hour, I think, to make. So I'm making them at a rate of about one a day at the moment. So it's going to take me a good month or so, at least, to finish the blanket. And no doubt I'll get distracted by other projects as well along the way. But yeah, I'll share the progress with you in the next podcast. And yeah, excited to seeing how this looks. I think it's going to look quite stunning, really, over a big area with lots of these flowers. And then it will need a name as well, of course. That will be the further challenge. So yeah, that's it for whips. And the next section of the podcast, I thought I'd just have a little quick chat with you about plans. So as well as finishing off those two whips, the cushion cover and the blanket, I also have plans for a new knitting project. So you might remember last autumn I knitted a Felix sweater, which I was really pleased with. That was my first time knitting a sweater, and yeah, I was really pleased with myself for completing it and making it. The only thing I didn't like about it, which wasn't the pattern at all, it was me, it was that it was quite short, and I should have, in hindsight, kept going a bit more on the body to make it a bit longer. But anyway, inspired sort of by that, I decided I wanted to make another sweater, and so also did my friend Emma from the Emma C Makes podcast. And we thought it would be fun, I think it was Emma's suggestion, if we chose one to make together sort of at the same time, although she is a much more experienced knitter than me, and I guess it all depends how distracted we both get by other projects, but she may well finish hers a lot quicker than I finish mine. But we have decided to make the no frills sweater, so I'll pop in a little picture of it to show you. So that's the no frills sweater, and the pattern suggests using a 4-ply yarn and I'm not sure what thickness it is, but like a kid silk fluffy yarn held together. I wasn't entirely sure if I wanted to make a fluffy jumper. I thought I might prefer something a bit smoother and less fluffy. And also, I've never knit, it's probably not that difficult, but I haven't knit with 2 strands held together before. And I didn't want to get in a tangle. So I thought I'd go, I saw on Ravelry, lots of people had just made it with a single DK yarn. So I thought I'd do the same. And I've gone for Drops Lima in, this is, I think it's called Brick Red. It doesn't say on the band, it just gives a number. Pardon me, but I'm pretty sure this is Brick Red. So it is 65% wool and 35% alpaca, and it's really nice and soft. It took me ages to decide what colour to go for. I've made quite a lot. This is the Candelaria Cardi, and this is my favourite colour really. It's this sort of dark bluey green colour. And my Felix pullover was made not in the same yarn, but in practically the same colour. I haven't got anything else in this colour, but I thought I could have so easily just made another jumper in this colour. And I'm sure I would like to one day, especially because the Felix is a bit short. But I thought it'd be good to branch out a bit and make something in a different colour. So I decided to go for this sort of dark browny red. And again, I just chose it based on how it looked online, which is always a little bit of a gamble, isn't it? How the colour looks on your screen. But when it arrived, I've got all of it now. I'm really pleased, and I think that colour will look really good. I saw a lot of really gorgeous jumpers in much paler colours, like sort of beiges and light greys and things, but those sort of colours don't really work on me. So I had to go for a darker, richer colour. I was contemplating making it in a sort of dark charcoaly grey, because I can wear, if the grey is dark enough, I can wear that. But then I wondered if grey is a bit boring. But I think I would like to knit a dark grey jumper one day. But for this one, I've gone for the brick red. So I'm not sure when we're going to cast it on at the moment. I was just watching Emma's podcast last night, and she's in the middle of an absolutely gorgeous crochet neat ripple blanket, which looks stunning. And she says she's also lost her knitting mojo a little bit. So I know she's got her yarn for it now. So we'll have to have a little chat and decide when we're gonna start this and cast it on. So I am really looking forward to having another knitting project on the go, because I'm really enjoying just the feeling of knitting with two knitting needles. It is quite different to crocheting with a hook. And yeah, there's just something about it that's really addictive. I mean, crochet is equally addictive too, but I'm looking forward to having a knitting project on the go as well. So that is one of my plans, the No Frills Sweater. The other thing, it's not really a plan as such, in that it's more of a plan to make a plan. So for Christmas, my younger daughter bought me these 3 balls of wool. They're all Bo Peep from West Yorkshire Spinners. Bo Peep, that's Bo Peep Luxury Baby, both of those are DK, and this is Bo Peep Pure, which is also DK. That's 100% wool. What's this? And then these two are, the baby ones are 52% wool and 48% nylon, but they feel very similar, and they're all really soft. So she bought me these 3 balls of wool, and I asked her initially if she had anything in mind that when she chose them, that she thought I could make with them. And initially she said a scarf. So I thought, oh, that would be nice. I could make her, I think I'd seen Emma had started her ripple blanket, and I thought, oh, I could make her a ripply scarf with them. But then a couple of days later, she said, actually, no, she didn't want a scarf. I have got also the same yarn, Bo Peep Pure in cream. I've got a little bit more than this. So I was thinking I could do cream, turquoise, cream blue, cream pink, cream, sort of alternate cream and one of the colours in the stripes in the scarf. I thought that might look quite nice. But she doesn't want a scarf. So obviously it's not going to be a massive project. It'd be nice to use all or the best part of the yarn up, because if there's anything left over, then I don't know if I'd finish it off. So maybe it could be a jumper or something, if there's a good kids pattern with DK yarn. So if anybody's got any suggestions, To be honest, I was thinking crochet, but it wouldn't necessarily have to be crochet, would it? It could be knitting. Of what I could make with these yarns, and then possibly with the cream as well. Let me know, and maybe I can make something with those yarns, because they're really lovely and soft and really nice colours. So I really like to use them. So yeah, if you've got any ideas, do let me know. I've been talking for quite a while, just looking at the clock. But that is it for today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the catch up on all the things that I've been working on. If you've enjoyed it, please do like and subscribe. And if you'd like to sign up to my email list, I do a monthly newsletter with a roundup of all my news, and you'll get news whenever I release a new pattern. So you'll get news when the blanket pattern is released, which hopefully will be in the spring sometime. And I always give a bigger discount code to the people on my email list than the one that I release sort of publicly. So if you're interested in any of that, do sign up to my email list. I'll put a link in the show notes below. And yeah, please like and subscribe if you've enjoyed it. And if you'd like to leave a comment, it's always lovely to hear from people. And yeah, have a chat via the comments. That would be great. So I hope you all have a lovely day or a lovely weekend, whatever you're up to. And I look forward to seeing you again next time in the next podcast. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye-bye.